Hey quilters, so my Pinwheel Popper quilt for the quilt along is basted and ready to quilt. Look at this gorgeous backing I used. It is a wide backing from Meander and Make. This is from the Made of Magic line. And kind of open this up a little bit and just show you. Got the, just see how good that looks with the front of my quilt. And I did make a video for you showing how I basted this. We are sitting on my bed right now, and you can see this quilt. This quilt makes it onto Instagram from time to time, and you can see it in some of my YouTube videos. It is the first quilt that I ever finished by myself. It is a complete hot mess. I had some people ask about it, and yeah, it's cute, but it's definitely, once you look at it close, it's a complete hot mess, but I still love it. But anyway, I actually based my quilts on the bed. I find that laying the fabric and the batting out on the mattress, it stays pulled, taut, and wrinkled free a little bit better, well, a lot better than if it was on a flat surface. And I know you can always tape your backing to the floor. That actually is a little harder than it sounds when you're working with big quilts. I do make a lot of big quilts, especially t-shirt quilts. So that's a little harder than it sounds. But this quilt is the perfect size for basting on the bed. And another thing about basting on the bed is you are not in the floor. That's always a good thing. I'm at the age where crawling around on the floor is not as fun as it used to be. But I actually did record me basting this guy, so I will show you that. But I do have a few confessions about when I baste. So the pattern says to cut your batting to 72 by 72. And I put that in there for people who want to know that, but I do not, and probably will not ever, cut my batting to an exact size. I use batting rolls because I make a lot of quilts. So I just kind of roll it out and eyeball it and wing it. I don't trim my backing to an exact size. Like I said, that's one of those things that I put in there because I know a lot of people like to know that information, so I don't want to leave that out. But it's not something I do. I also roll it out and wing it. Another thing I do when I baste my quilts, I do not layer all three. I don't lay all three down to baste at the same time, so I don't lay the backing down and the batting over it and the quilt top over that. If I'm going to pin baste or use the little tack gun to baste, I'll do that. But if I'm going to use adhesives, I don't do that. I actually lay the batting down first and then baste the quilt top to that and then flip that over and then put the backing over it and baste it to the batting. And the reason I do that is I find that when I lay all three layers down at once and try to peel the batting and the top back and put the adhesive down, I find that the backing is a lot more likely to move or bunch up on me that way than if I baste them separately. So that's what I'm going to show you in this video. And I'm using glue sticks for this one because I feel like they hold just as well as the white glue, the liquid glue, but aren't as messy. And they're also not as hard on your hands as far as trying to squeeze that glue bottle. And they also are not as messy as spray-based. With the glue sticks, I can be really precise and not have to worry about trying to cover stuff up to keep from getting from getting it everywhere like I would with the basting spray. So I do use glue sticks, but you can do, this tutorial would apply to basting spray as well. Just just be sure that you're doing things to prevent the overspray if you're in an area where you care about that. And one more thing, just a little, I guess a little disclaimer. You might see a little bit of a mess in the background from time to time. We are in the process of moving things around so that, like moving my sewing stuff around so that it has a more dedicated area. And it has been and will continue to be a long process. And it's one of those processes where it's not going to look good till it's done. So please forgive me for that, but I hope this video helps. Okay, so to baste this quilt, we're going to need our quilt top, of course, some batting. I always buy the batting in the rolls. This is a queen size roll of batting. I'm just going to kind of zoom out so you can see that. And the queen size batting rolls will come, and the king size too, the batting rolls will come folded over. And this is 90 inches, or yeah, 90 inches by 40 yards. So that'd be about a 7.5 foot long batting roll if they didn't fold it over. So it'll come like this. Always buy batting rolls because I make so many quilts. We're going to use some glue, and we won't use all of this glue, but this glue is some glue I got off of Amazon. It's called Doris, and it is just a washable glue stick. The Elmer's Disappearing Purple glue works great too. This is not disappearing purple, but it still sticks really well. And I do have a reel on Instagram where I kind of went through the steps of glue basting, where I did use disappearing purple glue, so you can see the glue. So I'll let that play after we get finished with this video. But one of the first things you're going to have to find out is which side of your batting goes up. So which side of your batting is going to be facing up. And I will, I'll show you a little pin trick for that. This particular batting is Pellon natural cotton with scrim. I typically use either warm and natural or warm and white, but lately it's gotten harder to find the warm and white in the big rolls like this. This stuff you can order it online through Walmart. It's got very similar specs to warm and natural and warm and white. All three of them are going to be cotton battings with a layer of polypropylene scrim. And what that layer of scrim does is that's going to stabilize the batting a little bit and make it so that you can actually quilt a little bit farther apart compared to some other battings. So I think the specs on these all say you can quilt up to 10 inches apart. I don't ever quilt that far apart, but they say that you can. But that's what that scrim layer does. So polypropylene scrim. And this one actually has, compared to warm and natural and warm and white, this one is actually a little bit thicker. But I do find it shrinks a little bit more. And I think the reason for that is because warm and natural and warm and white are going to have 87.5% cotton and 12.5% polypropylene. So I think that extra cotton content that this one has got like 93% cotton and 7% polypropylene. So I think maybe the extra cotton content in this one makes that shrink a little bit more than warm and natural and warm and white, but it's probably not enough to notice it very much. But let's see, I'm going to show you a little trick with a pin so that you can decide which side needs to go up on your batting. All right, so we've got just a regular needle here, and we're going to pull this batting out, kind of pull it tight, and we're going to poke on through, try to poke through the batting. So see how when I poke through that side, it's sort of, you can hear it kind of met some resistance. But let's turn it over to the other side, and it pokes straight through. So whatever side doesn't give you any resistance when you're poking that pin through is the side that needs to go on the top. And the reason that is because the side that's not giving you resistance is the side that was on the top when they needle punched your batting, if your batting is needle punched. And so that's the way it's designed for the needle to go through. So the side that when you poke through and it gives you the most resistance, like there's some places in this one on this side where it's going to give me resistance. But this side, everywhere I'm poking through, straight through without any resistance. So just kind of poke your batting with a needle, and whichever side doesn't give you resistance is going to be the side that needs to go up when you're basting your quilt. All right, so once you have your quilt top pressed, you'll want to make sure that your bedspread is pulled nice and tight so it's smooth and doesn't have any wrinkles that might mess up your basting. And the quilt top doesn't have to be super flat, super smooth down right now, because right now we're just testing the size of the batting. So I've got my batting there. I'm just going to roll this out, and then we'll roll it all the way over to the other side. And then when we get over there, we'll roll it the rest of the way out, and then we're just going to eyeball to trim it down to where it's 3 inches longer than that quilt top. And you can kind of see here, you know, it's about 3 inches there. Eyeball that and then trim that down. So I'm just eyeballing that 3-inch mark here, trimming this batting to where it's about 3 inches of overhang on each side. And once you get it trimmed, you'll move that quilt top out of your way and unfold your batting. So I've got my batting spread out over the bedspread, and it is nice and flat. Those wrinkles over there, that's put it to the side that we'll end up trimming off. But I like to baste my quilts one layer at a time. I get a lot better results if I baste one layer at a time as opposed to laying all 3 layers down and trying to just peel back one layer at a time and baste. Anytime I try to lay all 3 layers down, I always end up getting tucks and folds on the backing. So I like to do this one layer at a time. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to baste the quilt top to the batting. Then we'll turn it over and baste the backing to that. So now that your batting is all flattened out, we're going to spread this quilt top out over it. And you'll just kind of eyeball it. You want around 3 inches of overhang on all sides. So I'm just walking around the bed here and spreading this out. You'll smooth that quilt top out just like you did with the batting. And just keep smoothing that out until you get it nice and flat. And notice I'm not having to bend over too much, and I'm also not in the floor. Okay, so once you get that quilt top smoothed out nice on top of your batting, you're going to eyeball 3 inches of overhang and trim the rest of that batting off. So once you have that batting trimmed to around 3 inches of overhang and the quilt smoothed out, you want to peel back one side, and we're going to work in sections, and we're just going to get this glue stick, and we're just going to apply glue to the quilt top. Now, I've been using this method for a couple years, and something that I have not noticed a difference in as far as how well it sticks is it doesn't really matter whether you are applying the glue to the quilt top or to the batting as far as how well it's going to stick. I do like to apply to the quilt top when I can, just because applying straight to the batting wrinkles that batting up. And as far as how much you want to apply, I usually go around 4 inches or so in between streaks of glue. And whether you're taking your glue horizontal or vertically doesn't really matter so much. I do like to go, so like towards this edge, I'd like to go horizontally just because that's going to stick those edges better. So you'll just apply that glue, and it's hard for me to do with one hand, but you'll apply the glue, and I like to work in sections. So this glue, this quilt is folded in half. We're going to apply glue to about 1 block worth, which for this one will be about 1/4. And we'll fold that over, smooth it out, and then apply glue to this bottom half, fold it over, smooth it out, and then we'll do the same thing with the other half. Okay, so once you've got all the glue applied to this one, we're going to pull this back, and you'll smooth. I like to smooth from the outside, or I'm sorry, inside out. So kind of smooth that, pressing down that glue, sticking that glue as you go. Make that quilt top nice and smooth. And then once you get one half stuck, you'll grab your other half, peel it back, and we're going to go section by section. So I'm going to do this first, about 1/4 section, and we'll start applying glue there. And like I said, it doesn't really matter whether you apply the glue in vertical streaks or horizontal streaks. Just want to be sure that on the edges, you're kind of going in the opposite direction of that edge so that it'll hold it down. And then you'll just push this back and smooth just like you did on the other side. So once you have your quilt top glued to your batting, you're going to flip that over and you'll do the same thing. Smooth it out. Have it laying nice and flat on your bed. Once that's all smoothed out, you can still see some of the seam lines. I don't know how well you can see it from the video, but you can still see some of the seam lines, just the texture of the seam lines. And that actually comes in handy when you are using, like, say, a piece backing where you have like 2 different fabrics and you want them to be pretty well half and half. That actually comes in handy when you're doing that because you can use those seam lines as a guide to line that up. But once you get that smoothed out, you're going to take your backing, and I've got this gorgeous wide backing. This is from Made of Magic, from Meander and Make. So you'll just take your backing and spread it out over the batting. I love doing that. It reminds me of making up my bed when I was a little kid. So just smooth that out. You want your back end to be already pressed, but smooth that out just like you smooth the quilt top over the batting, and you want your backing to be real close to the batting or a little bit overhang. Okay, so once you get your backing fabric all smoothed out over your batting, we're just going to trim off that extra, and we're just cutting around 1 inch past where the batting is. You can kind of eyeball it.